Make sure your data's clean, if not clean, at least labeled. And if you're unsure about it, do what Microsoft does. Microsoft has what we call a zero trust policy. Always assume that you've been compromised.
Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we have a familiar face to the show. We have Mo, very well known in our team space, but he's recently taken on a new role looking after the Big Four. And we talk about his experiences with Copilot, with business change, with adoption. Always great insights from Mo. Thanks so much to him for joining the show. And also many thanks to AVI SPL, who are the sponsor of this podcast. Really appreciate their support. On with the show. Hi everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Second time, maybe third time for Mo on the podcast. Everyone in this community knows Mo, I think, but he's left us for new shores and new customers. So we're going to talk about that. Mo, how's things?
Yeah, things are great. Things are really busy, but learning loads. So yeah, awesome. Super excited, super happy.
So give us the cliff notes of your journey in our Teamsy space and what you're doing now, and we'll talk about some interesting things around kind of adoption and change and AI and Copilot. We had a really interesting conversation in the prep, but we should just recorded the prep really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So hey everyone, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mo, and for FY26, so I joined Microsoft, or rejoined Microsoft, call it a boomerang. So I was at Microsoft before, part of the Teams Rooms business with Michelle Bauman and, all the greats that we see in the industry. Then I moved over to HP Poly for a little while, and then rejoined Microsoft. And this time around, I've joined Microsoft as what we call an AI workforce specialist for this FY. Last FY, it was called a modern work SSP. So that term hopefully is quite familiar to a lot of you. And effectively, I look after everything pre-sales on a modern work perspective, which is things like Copilot, of course, there's SharePoint and OneDrive and M365, and of course, Copilot as well. And I'm part of the big global team at Microsoft that look after Microsoft's 4 largest customers, the Big Four, which is, hopefully everyone knows who the Big Four are. They are professional services, the big name brands like KPMG and Deloitte and EY and PwC and those sort of guys.
I think everybody knows the names, don't they? They're huge forces.
Absolutely. And huge customers, right? Massive Microsoft users already. And these guys are super, super excited about how they can, make things more efficient for their workforce. And they're an interesting bunch, really interesting to work with, because you think, hey, Mo's only got 4 customers, but in actual fact, these 4 customers have hundreds and hundreds of member firms globally, so it ends up being hundreds of customers.
Yeah, see, I'm the other way around. I'm surprised you can manage 4. I've worked with some of them as well as to consult. It was on the Lincoln Skype days back in the day. But these customers have awesome internal teams. Like they have FTEs for all the stuff. They obviously have consulting arms. They have great relationship with Microsoft. So they have reach into different product bits and pieces as well. So I feel like you've got quite the challenge to cover something that broad for those types of customers.
Absolutely. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is challenging, but it's rewarding, really rewarding, right? Because these guys are looking forward to be ahead of the game, right? So every time Microsoft launches or announces new updates, and it seems to be happening literally on a daily basis right now with Microsoft, we announce something new, and especially when we think of AI and we think of Copilot and all the new updates that are coming through. The Big Four are just on it, right? They're just like, how do we get our hands on it? How do we deploy in this regulated industry that we have? So massive challenges. But the good thing is part of modern work still involves Teams and Teams Rooms and phones. So I'm still in that world as well.
Yeah, all that really heritage still pays off. You still know what's going on in that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. So super excited to be here this time around, adding to the career ladder, of course, and learning so much more. And it's really good to see all the good stuff Microsoft is doing around AI now and Copilot and all the updates, especially with Ignite last week, right? So all the announcements, it wasn't last week, it was the week before. With all the new announcements that have come out, and really good to see what's happening in that space.
And those customers, obviously, they're big Microsoft customers, but they look at other tools and other platforms, things like that. So it's like, I imagine a lot of your role is talking about AI at the moment because it's just a big thing in the industry and it's a big thing to Microsoft. But I'm sure you're being asked all sorts of questions, both on the compliance and adoption side and on the kind of competitive option side. What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, right? So literally every single day conversations will talk about things like data sovereignty and how's data processed and what happens in AI. I mean, I usually tell our customers to kind of take a step back, and it's pretty much the same across all of our customers, not just the big four. So take a step back, relax, hit that reset button, and then think about where we are in the world right now. So if you remember, the last big massive change that we had was smartphones, right? Smartphones took on average, I think it was 3 years to get to like 100 million users, and AI has taken 3 months to do that. The one previous to that was internet, and we had to change the way we think. We had to change the way we deployed, technology, etc. And the same principle we're starting to see here with AI, especially going back to the last sentence I said around how Microsoft generally is sending out new updates and new features pretty much every single day. So we need to rethink, like, how do we deploy updates? Do we use update rings? Do we treat it the same way as updates that land on a PC, or is it different? And the rate we see AI moving today is crazy. I mean, me and you and many of our listeners as well, we come from that generation of watching Terminator and artificial intelligence and all of this good stuff, iRobot, where AI is known to be this like dangerous thing with a free thinking mind, and it's designed to kill us all. But in actual fact, when we look at AI and we look at Copilot, and the reason why Microsoft call it Copilot and not Autopilot is it's there to help, right? It's there to, take off those mundane tasks and those repetitive tasks that we have. But it's much more than that now, right? We've gone beyond what Cortana and those great services used to do back in the day. Now it's agents talking to agents and creating virtual teams and, kind of moving that way. And, when we look at kind of the way the world is today, especially with the geopolitical front and whatnot, a lot of customers really do start asking those questions around where is data processed?
Yeah, I think you've got some of the toughest customers in terms of data processing, not just because of their opinions on where data should or shouldn't be or is or isn't, but they make commitments to their end customers as well. Absolutely. And we were talking in the prep a really good conversation about like it being in a particular geo versus it being in the service. So and obviously the Anthropic models recently came in, and that was a real revelation for me. That's the first time in my memory that Microsoft have offered a first-party integration to something that is actually hosted on AWS, which shows the commitment to bring customers what they want. Obviously, it's optional and they opt in and all the good safety stuff. But like the way that AI is scaling so quickly, like, is this processed in region and go local? Is it processed in the West Geo? Is it processed globally? It's quite an intricate conversation.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you think of the last year with Microsoft and all the changes that have happened at Microsoft, and even the year before that as well, Microsoft's been really working hard in the back end to really support this for the future. So we look at things like, the EU data boundary, for example. We made big announcements really early on in the year around the EU data boundary to give our customers that sit here, to give them that confidence to still work alongside Microsoft. And then, of course, the UK leaves the EU as part of Brexit, and then all of a sudden we sit outside of the EU data boundary. So a whole range of other questions start coming out of there. But Microsoft has done a lot to change in terms of data sovereignty, where data sits, where data is processed. We've been a lot more transparent in terms of providing guidance and support material to our customers to see exactly what happens with that data, but at the same time constantly evolving as well and changing the way we do things to ensure that we respect those boundaries and we respect what customers' asks are and wishes are around data. It's not a world 12 months ago I thought I'd be so thoroughly involved in, right? It's quite easy to say, hey, if you're the first person on a Teams call, your data's held there. But when it comes to Copilot, it's where's your data stored? Where's the transport route? Like, which data center? And Microsoft's constantly spinning up new data centers, literally every other month to help support these in-region asks that customers have as well. So, yeah, it's a really interesting subject. But that's the one thing I love about Microsoft and other competitors out there as well, is we're building these data centers to really help support customers for the future. And it's not, the way I see it is, how like sometimes you see new technologies come out, they're really cool, really exciting, but you don't know if they're going to last. This is one of those technologies where you're like, it's here to stay, right? This is the new smart.
I often have this conversation about, like, if the development didn't get any further than this, which seems unlikely, but like let's say the worst case, right? It's not going to get any better than it is now. There's so much we can leverage out of it today if the model's just stopped. And we've just seen with, the new Opus model from Anthropic and 5.1 from ChatGPT, and like Google have done an amazing job with Gemini 3. Like, it is still moving forward, and it probably will continue for a bit. But even if it didn't, there's so much value to be gained for businesses out of the existing stuff. And that's really the challenge, I think, is adoption. I'd be interested in your perspective on like the included Copilot chat versus M365 Copilot. What are you seeing there, and into agents and all sorts of more advanced stuff?
Yeah, and the thing I always tell customers at the very beginning, the hardest part is really the adoption piece, right? And when you look at humans overall and human nature, on average, it takes us 28 days to create a brand new habit. And when you're using the likes of Copilot or any other, kind of AI tool, it's about creating that habit to start off with, using it for a 4-week period, on average, and then it becomes second nature. That's step one. And when we look at kind of like the journey of AI and the journey of Copilot, especially, it starts with yourself, right? How can I use Copilot to help me as an individual? So when I wake up in the morning, because I sit within a global team, all the US folk, for example, my US team will be sending mails at night while I'm, having my dinner with my kids. And then in the morning, I'll use Copilot to kind of summarize and anywhere that I've been mentioned, highlight and tell me if there's any action notes behind it. That's now become second nature to me. I don't sit there for hours looking through 50 emails. Now I get Copilot to do it, and then I'll pick and choose and be like, okay, this is important. Give me the notes for that, etc. So you start off by personal productivity. How does it help me as an individual? Then all of a sudden, I'm starting to use agents, right? So, for example, you mentioned it really nicely, Tom, with the big four, having just one of these customers is hard enough as it is, right? And I'm constantly, when I'm jumping from calls, I have to remind myself which customer I'm talking to, or else I don't want to say the wrong customer there. And it's happened to me once, and I learned my lesson, never again, right? But what I've done is I have a central repository of literally all the information around my customers, right? Everything from EA agreements to, conversations, et cetera, et cetera. I built an agent myself using Studio Lite, so Copilot Studio Lite, which was known as Agent Builder first, to basically reference each one. So if I say, hey, this particular customer, is asking this question, can you remind me what it's all about? It will go into that repository and bring it out. So it's making my life easier without me having to kind of like search through it. The stage that then comes after is, how can it help my team? Because all of a sudden I'm like, this agent is great. It's helping me out a lot and it's saving minutes. I then share that to my team. It's now become a team agent. So my team's now using it. And then we think when we start moving ahead, we start looking at, well, how can agents then help business processes? So not just as an individual, how can we use it as business processes? For example, the first ever time that I joined Microsoft, first time around, when I was onboarding, I had to actually go to the office. They gave me my laptop. I had to sign a whole bunch of things, and they talked me through it. I had to run down to MSIT, and then they helped set up my VPN and multi-factor authentication. This time around, I didn't even step into the office. Literally, it came with a barcode. I scanned the barcode. It took me to an agent. It's like an employee agent. And the agent did everything for me. It ordered the laptops for me. It basically set me up. It set me multi-factor authentication. It told me about my holidays.
That Microsoft onboarding process is non-trivial on the back end as well. The amount of different systems integration. So if they've got AI around that, that's impressive.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? Because when you start moving into the more advanced stages of agents, it's what we call, you might have heard the terminology agentic or agentic conversations. That's what we refer to. So stage one is always about yourself. How do I make Copilot and AI work better for me? And we do that day to day with ChatGPT and Gemini and all these other good ones. Of course, Copilot's the best one out of it, of course.
Of course.
And then we move into like the business processes, and we get agents now talking to agents, right? So that's kind of like what we call phase 2 at Microsoft, where I have an agent that would, help me set up my PC. But if something's wrong with my PC, that agent then speaks to another agent, a procurement agent, to be able to order me a brand new PC. And then that agent can then go ahead and talk to, ServiceNow, for example, and raise a ticket on my behalf. So we have agents talking to agents. In fact, one of my customers actually gave a really, really good quote, and it resonated with me and stuck to me really well. when we move into this phase 3 of the agentic conversation, where we have teams of agents actually doing, whole swaths of work, IT teams that we have here today then become the HR teams for agents.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel, isn't it? Because we were talking at the Manchester user group last week about this, like what Microsoft are really good at in enterprise, various things, but like the Intra/AD, the control, the Purview, the Intune, like all the stuff we do around managing people, and you can see how mentally that cleverness jumps to, well, now we need to manage these agents. So the not saying that agents are people, but like the same controls, like it needs RBAC, it needs logging, it needs access, it needs control. So it's interesting to see how Microsoft are well placed, and that's kind of the Agent 365 story that's coming through now, is to be a management control layer for the agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny to see, and how crazy it is to see like the pace of innovation really happening in this space, where, it's not, we're still having this debate with a lot of customers at the moment, where is it designed to like replace people? Absolutely not. No. Is it going to cause redundancies and that sort of stuff? Hopefully it doesn't. And the way we talk to our customers, especially, the exec leaders, etc., is people will always be an element as part of Copilot, as part of the agentic conversations. You still need somebody to go in and verify and make sure things are correct, etc. But the mundane tasks you can leave to agents to do. Whereas humans, being so innovative that we can concentrate on the more value-driven tasks, right? It's not about, I'm going to replace Mo because an agent can do his job. It's no, actually, I'm going to put Mo into another position where he can actually do things that an agent can't do at the moment. And I let the agent do all the boring stuff that Mo was doing previously.
Yeah. I think we've all got things we'd happily hand off, which are just like, all I'm doing really is clicking mice and moving things around, like that proactive summary of content or morning briefing. Like my favorite at the moment is just having Copilot reason over my day and my week on the way in on voice mode and be like, what's important? What have I got to catch? And it's amazing, like how useful that is. And it's like I haven't got a person that can do that, but now I feel like I've got my own virtual EA that's helping me out with my day.
It's funny, Tom. That is probably one of my favorite features at the moment with Copilot voice right now, where I do that. And the funny thing is, it's not just reading it out like a robot, right? Excuse me. It's having like a podcast. It's like two people talking to each other, right? So you can even do that with the next time, if you have Copilot already and you click on the recap button in the top right-hand corner, you'll see like an audio recap. If you hit the audio recap button, you can choose between different tonalities like executive style, etc. But what it will do is it will create like two people talking to each other about that particular meeting, and they're having a conversation and explaining to you. And it's great for like, if you're going for a walk, or you're walking your dog, or you're starting to run. I've started running, by the way. That's a complete different story, and I'll tell you another day. But like I will listen to podcasts and things, and sometimes because time becomes so precious right now, especially if I'm like running to the train station, I'll actually use those audio recaps as a podcast. Yeah. And those two people talking to each other that the AI has created, it spins it in a different way. It doesn't feel like Siri or Google Assistant or what it used to do, where it just kind of just narrates and just reads like
there's something it tweaks in your head which is just a little bit more engaging, isn't it? It's like, oh, okay, like, there is something there.
See, I need to pitch to engineering. I need to get them to create a Tom voice in there so that podcast would be.
I'm not sure people are ready for that.
But definitely awesome. One of my favorite features, yeah.
Yeah, and I think talking of Ignite, as you mentioned, I think Microsoft nailed the WorkIQ messaging, kind of the IQ platform, but WorkIQ specifically about, we talked about, again, in your customers, they're obviously looking at different options. They have, relationships with multiple vendors. I think that WorkIQ conversation about helping people understand why it's different to have like ChatGPT and a connector to Graph versus native integration to the whole M365 platform and your docs, your data, your email. That's where our team's kind of background comes back full round, is the meeting transcripts, the call transcripts, the summaries, the chats, the channels. I'm so excited now that that's kind of coming together, and it has been a journey. These have been different Copilots doing different things. Now it's all converging.
Yeah, no, WorkIQ is definitely something that's been in the works for the past year. In fact, a lot of the big four customers, they have a lot of I wouldn't say influence, but a lot of say in how our products shape up because they're such big customers and valued customers of ours, and they have so many different use cases that we don't even think about during the engineering design phase. And a lot of them were like, hey, we as the big four, for example, have multiple member firms across different continents and different countries, etc. But we have different languages that we use for certain bits of documents or certain abbreviations. Anyone that's worked at Microsoft or worked with Microsoft knows Microsoft loves their acronyms. We've actually got a whole glossary full of them as a dedicated website. And using that kind of analogy and using what our customers have been telling us about, I want Copilot to be a bit more personalized for me. We've got Copilot memory, which is personalized for you as a person. But then how do I have it where it's personalized for one of our customers, right?
Yeah, like the org level.
Yeah, so KPMG, as an example, if KPMG have certain abbreviations that they use or certain project names that they use, can WorkIQ be able to understand what that person is talking about, regardless of where you are in the world? And then how do we go ahead and regionalize that across different regions as well? So, this is just the beginning that we're seeing with WorkIQ. I think it's super excited. I already love Copilot memory, where I'm like, don't call me Mohammed, call me Mo, or, end my emails in this particular way, or use my personality when I'm talking to emails. We're now going to see that within WorkIQ as well. And like you said, I guess that's where Microsoft has the strength is, in Dataverse and Fabric and, kind of all of these data points that Microsoft has that customers use day in, day out. We have our fingers in there already where Copilot can go in and reason, but understand, more importantly, what their users, what the customers are actually talking about, especially when they're talking abbreviations.
Makes sense.
Prompts will become so much more easy if you think about it, right, Tom? You don't have to like re-say a prompt and, train that particular prompt and say, you are such and such and you need to do this. Now help me reason. Now, with WorkIQ, it should just automatically figure it out because it has that as part of its memory.
Yeah, and it's things like memory is an awesome component of that because it just learns, but also like the level of data Microsoft have got to help you if you're an M365 customer is like it knows who your boss is, it knows your org chart, it knows the documents you previously worked on, therefore it knows your style. So I still think we're early on this journey where it can just get better and better and better. So even if you're a new user, you've got the org history on your side already from day one and the org structure, as you said. That's really interesting.
And I think if I was to give any advice to any customers that are looking to get onto like the agentic Copilot journey, the first thing I would say is take a look at your data, make sure your data is clean, right? So use the likes of Purview, start classifying your data, use data classification labels on your data. What is highly confidential? What is public knowledge? What is okay? Because whenever you go ahead and then start deploying the likes of M365 Copilot, it knows which data to use and it knows which data not to touch, right? And I would say that's probably been the biggest blocker for a lot of customers today, where they want to go ahead and deploy, but they're scared of oversharing. They're scared of data that's going to be accessed by the agent or by the AI because they haven't done the due diligence in the past of.
Yeah, it's nice that this has become a bit of a forcing function. We always all knew this was the right thing to do and needed to do it. And it was one of those IT projects that would always get pushed off. And now there's a real compelling reason to get it right. Not just a negative risk reason of things might go out that shouldn't go out, but a real positive one to helping scope the data to help the AI perform as best as it can.
Yeah. It kind of forces IT teams to do a bit of spring cleaning on the data. Because, we've become very complacent over the years, right? We've got just take M365 as an example, right? But prior to that, it was perpetual licenses, things locally stored in servers, etc. It took us a little while to move to this new subscription model with M365. Everyone was uproar like, oh, I'm not paying per month. But now you just set it and forget it, right? Now you don't have to worry about updates. You don't have to worry about new features that just work. It just comes through and we can't think otherwise. If you've ever used Office 2009 or something, like if you found the CD back in the day and you plugged it in and you tried it, you're like, oh my God, this is so basic versus what M365, can do for you today. We see obviously the same thing happening around AI as well, right? We're constantly evolving, constantly changing, but we need to do that spring clean on our data because we got so complacent that things like Office 365 or M365 have done so well, now we need to look at what can be reasoned over. How do we make sure that if I type in what's the salary that the CEO gets, that he doesn't actually bring back that information? So data classification becomes quite key with the likes of Purview. And there's many of our Microsoft partners out there as well that can provide these services that sit on top of things like Purview to make life a little easier as well. So, definitely that's the number one rule. Look at your data. Make sure your data is clean, if not clean, at least labeled. And if you're unsure about it, do what Microsoft does. Microsoft has what we call a zero trust policy. And that's one of the first things they teach you as part of your onboarding is always assume that you've been compromised. Right. So things like how we lock the PC down to emails, everything is always going to be labeled as highly confidential. The many times that people receive emails from me or anyone at Microsoft, I'm sure, Tom, you've been on the receiving end of this a lot. It'll always say you don't have access, and then you have to request access. And, so it's having this zero trust policy that just label everything as highly confidential and then ask for permissions after, but organically help you grow, kind of what clean data looks like. So that's a piece of advice I would give.
And what have you seen on the adoption side, Mo? Any tips? Like we've been having a lot of conversations on the pod around like again the included Copilot, tons of value there, and it's right in the box. And then obviously the M365 Copilot with the premium license. How have you seen? Because these are huge global organisations. I imagine adoption is non-trivial.
Yeah. So we're in a friendly space right now. Microsoft has probably done itself no favors in terms of our labeling marketing, right? So we've got Copilot Chat, which is effectively free Copilot, and then we've got M365 Copilot, which is the paid for version. A lot of customers don't know the difference between the two. One of the changes we made over the summer was giving Copilot Chat, which is the free version, free to pretty much everybody. So if you have M365, if you're using a Windows PC, or if you're using Edge as a browser, you'll now see Copilot pop up on the side. So a lot of customers automatically assumed, hey, I've got Copilot, but not M365 Copilot. And the key difference to remember is Copilot Chat, aka free Copilot, reasons over what's on your screen and kind of goes out to the internet and is web grounded, so we'll bring information back. M365 Copilot, aka paid for Copilot or licensed Copilot, reasons over enterprise data, plus the web and everything else. So you get more with that one. So we started seeing adoption rise when people were using Copilot, as you see it pop up and you're like, oh, let me ask about this page. Or, Google does it really well. If anyone's got an Android phone and you do a quick, search using the bar, the first thing it uses Gemini to kind of bring up your search results. Copilot's doing the same. So when it comes to adoption, we see Copilot Chat as being like the entry point. So people are starting to use it across there. And then when we start looking at M365 Copilot paid for version, then all of a sudden we're asking questions about deeper data. And then we're starting to see that. But, the question that you asked me around adoption and any tips around adoption, always remember what I said around it takes 28 days to create a habit. Right. So it's a slower process. Where we see Copilot being used the most, that's within Teams. So definitely after meetings. That's the number one area. Yeah, it's
a pain point that everybody gets, right? Like everybody has lots of meetings. Everybody wants great notes. And it's a kind of automatic or one-click solution as well. So it just kind of brings that value.
It's such a lifesaver, right? Like taking notes. If for those of you that know me in real life, like I'm like the smallest person in the world, and I've got one big, really bad habit where I'll ask for your name and I'll completely forget remembering your name, right? I'm so bad at it. Whereas, if you think of if I had Copilot sitting on my shoulder, for example, it would automatically take those notes every time I ask for people.
I'm signing up when it's available. I would like same thing. You get to meet a lot of.
That would be amazing.
A lot of people at events and stuff, don't you? So keeping up is a nightmare.
Yeah. So that would be amazing. Kind of doing that as well. So we see Copilot being used the most when it comes to Teams, right? So how do we do meeting recaps, etc.? That should be a starting point because we see that people using it. We see Copilot now within meeting rooms as well. So when we think of MTR and we think of Teams itself, that's where it's used the most. Then we want to start asking questions. The next biggest one is Outlook. So then how do I reason over emails? How do I ask about, hey, I've got a meeting coming up today. Can you help me prepare? And it will then go over to Outlook, etc. When because Copilot now has entry points across all apps as well, you'll now see, like, when it opens up in Excel or PowerPoint or Word, Microsoft tries to give like little hints or little prompts to say, ask it this, ask it that. So generally getting people to do it. But I always recommend the number one thing we talk about is prompts, right? So how do you actually do prompts? How does AI respond to prompts and building out prompts? So generation of prompts. Talk about Teams, talk about Outlook, and then slowly starting to introduce things like analyst or researcher and showing the power of what it can do. But make it relevant to the business that you're in. That's the key thing. So Microsoft has a lot of really good learning material, but it's very generic. And especially like my customers, the big four customers that have like different lines of services like auditing and consulting and tax and legal and those sort of stuff. Whenever I talk about Copilot to any one of these lines of services, I have to kind of personalize it, that what's it like a day in the life of a tax person, a day in the life of an auditor, and actually customize those prompts to help them with their work that they have for that day. So I always use myself as an example, and I'll be like, this is what I do when I wake up in the morning. I've got kids, right? I'm a typical guy with typical father with kids that drive me nuts and everything else. I have very minimal time throughout the day. So how do I use Copilot to help me across this? How do I create a script for this podcast that I'm doing, as an example? So make it relevant to the users that you're using. Utilize the learn.microsoft.com pages as well. But make sure you give yourself enough time. No one's going to learn it in 2 weeks. It's a 28-day human nature. Create a habit, and then it becomes second nature.
Awesome. Well, Mo, thanks for dropping so much knowledge. Really interesting to hear that new role. And I'm not envious of the challenge you have to keeping up with some. I know some great people in those organisations. So it's you're up against really strong internal teams. I'm sure they keep you on your toes.
Absolutely. They're a great bunch. And, it's still really good to be working with all of you guys all the time as well. So, Microsoft's a huge organization, and Copilot's just bringing everything together, and we're seeing everything merge, right? So no doubt, whatever I talk about within Copilot falls into the AV world and vice versa. And
it's all coming together. It's one of our biggest conversations in the team space, and it's nice. Teams is such as you said, one of the fastest adopting platforms for people to get AI and understand AI and drive business value out of it. So yeah, it's all interlinked one way or another.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, cheers, Mo. Nice to catch up. And I'll probably see you at one of the events soon.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. Take care.